Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new Elder Scrolls Online character build video with me, Sherman. Today guys, I bring you the Blood Cultist Witch. Now I know I called this the Warlock in the video, but it was originally supposed to be a male. I turned it into a female and it worked out. So we changed it to Witch instead of Warlock. Now, before I get started, disclaimer, this is a roleplay, casual play build. This is not meant for meta play. Moving on. Blood Cultist Witch are really interesting in their background and everything like this. This is a cultist that worships this blood, I don't know what to call it, a traveler or what, they're one of those eyeball things that siphons the life out of their enemies. And the whole concept behind it was to be this thing, this kind of character that would siphon the life from their enemies and give it to their allies, and it really fit really well into it. It was originally called the Blood Mage, but then I changed it to the Blood Cultist because I felt it fit better, because they make deals with this otherworld entity that gives them the ability to do this and everything. It's really cool. It's a really neat concept, if you will, and it fits really well within the lore of the game, because there are a lot of these things. If you guys have ever played through I can't remember it now. Give me a sec. I'm gonna do this. I shouldn't be doing this. Not in a video like this, but Vaults of Madness. Have any of you ever done the Vaults of Madness dungeon and you get to the big staircase that goes up and that big eyeball boss comes down? It's basically one of those that you worship. And they live off the suffering and stuff of others, so you worship them and they give you the powers necessary to do that. And we're going to get into it now. So, taking a look at the character, we are a Blood Cultist Witch. We are a Nightblade Dark Elf. Now, you can be other races with this, but I do find Dark Elf works pretty good for this. High Elf works a little better. Breton works really good. Any race works really good with this on purpose, and it's because of how it's designed. So looking at our stats, you can see that playing this character as a damage dealer primarily, which is what they are not a healer, they are a damage dealer. They get 64 points in a magicka. This is going to give you 35k magicka, 20k health, 15k stamina. Now, this character can play a tank, and it can play a healer as well. It can play a very powerful healer and a very powerful tank and damage dealer. For some reason, it works really good across the board. To play this as a tank, you're going to take the 64 out of magicka. You're going to put into health till you get to about 30k. And then you're going to stop. Then you're going to put the rest back into magicka. Now, to play this as a healer, you just leave it alone. You just change to a resto staff on the back bar. You guys know how to set it up. And then you go from there. Now, with being a Dark Elf, this is what your stat pools are going to look like. Now remember, playing other races, your stat pools will change. Now, mag recovery is coming in at 1637, 367 max health, 611 stamina recovery. Our spell damage is coming in at 2070 on the back bar, I believe, and on the front bar 2270 with a 45% spell critical. And if you notice, our stats do change a little when we swap bars. Not by much, just a little bit. On the, don't worry too much about weapon damage. You don't use a lot of stamina-based abilities, but if you want, you can. And they do work out. Not very well, but they do work. Spell resist is coming in at 12,000, almost 13,000. Physical resist coming in at 12,000. And then we are using the Thief Mundus Stone to play this as a damage dealer. You cannot do this with the Lover Mundus Stone, okay? You just can't, it doesn't work. But you can use the Lady Mundus Stone for when you're tanking, and when you're playing a healer, you want to use the Atronach Mundus Stone. We do use Witch Mother's Potent Brew for the magicka recovery, max magicka, and max stamina. Or max health, sorry. Now, if you want to use dual stat food, you can on a Breton, but not perfectly. You can use tri-stat food on most other races pretty well, and along with the Dark Elf. But Witch Mother's Potent Brew gives you the higher mag recovery, and you'll see why it's important that you have that. Alright, now moving on to gear and equipment, starting with our potions. We do use tri-pots with this build for when we're tanking. We use spell power pots for when we're playing healer or damage dealer. Now, we're going to go over the sets, and like I said, this is not a healer. This is a damage dealer that uses certain sets to give it an advantage. You guys will see what I mean when it's in action. So starting with its monster set, I felt this fit really well with this, the Melibeth the Scourger's Visage, or the Melibeth the Scourge Harvester set. It gives you max health, and then when you take damage, you have a 6% chance to create a beam that steals X amount of health over 4 seconds from the attacker. While the beam holds, you gain major vitality, increasing your healing received by X amount. The beam breaks if the enemy moves further than 8 meters away. This effect can occur once every 6 seconds. It's a very powerful set if you can get it to work right. It doesn't always work perfectly, but it can help you out a lot. I find it works best in dungeons where you take a lot of damage over time. Next set. And this is where people are going to get confused. This is the next two sets. Our first set is Combat Physician. And the reason why we use Combat Physician is the 2-piece gives us max magicka, 3-piece spell crit, 4-piece spell crit, and then the 5-piece. When you critically heal yourself or an ally, you grant the target a damage shield that absorbs X amount of damage every 6 seconds. This effect can occur once every 6 seconds. So, here's the thing you have to understand about Warlocks. Warlocks use a lot of their magic to aid their allies, either in reducing enemy damage, like negatively affecting the enemy, or aiding their allies in support. They're very support-oriented characters. Our next set is another support set, and it is Spell Power Cure. And the Spell Power Cure works really well with this because it gives you 2 things of magic on the 2 and 3 piece. The 4 piece gives you spell damage, and the 5 piece. When you heal yourself or an ally that is 100% health, you have a 50% chance to give that target major courage for 10 seconds, increasing their weapon and spell damage by 258 for the 10 seconds. So this is really nice, but it can also be very difficult to master its use. But it works really great with this character type, and you'll see why when I do the parse. So let's go over traits and enchants on the gear. Starting with the monster set, we have a reinforced heavy helm with a tri-stat. This is to maximize our capability of playing this as a tank, a healer, and damage dealer. With the tri-stats, and the reinforced gives us a greater survivability with the heavy helm. The shoulders are divines, max magicka, and actually all the pieces are small, like the gloves, the belt, and the boots are all light armor, except for the shoulders, which is medium. This is your heavy medium combo as the monster set. The rest of it's all light, but these are all divines with max magicka. This is so you can maximize your Mundus Stone use and your max magicka pool. Now, moving on to the chest and legs, we are using well fitted. This reduces dodge roll cost and sprint costs by 5%. This allows us to dodge roll more effectively without burning through resources. This allows us to sprint further without burning through a lot of resources. You guys get the idea. On top of that, our next set of gear, the jewelry, we are using 2 Trirune on the rings with spell damage enchants, and on the necklace we are using an infused mag recovery. Now you can use a Bloodthirsty here, that does work as well. You will go down a little bit in mag recovery, but not enough to seriously affect this character. And Bloodthirsty does give you greater damage output. Now, moving on to the weapons. We are using a Nirnhoned Fire Staff on the front bar with a shock damage enchant. The shock damage is there to give us better uptime of concussed and off balance with the back bar. Now on the back bar, we are using an infused lightning staff with a weapon spell damage enchant. This is so we can have a more effective uptime of our weapon and spell damage to boost that our damage capabilities. Right, now moving on to skills. Starting with class skills. I do unlock all the class ultimates, active abilities, and passives for different situations based on how I play the character and in what way I need the abilities added to help the group. Same thing goes with all of them. So always keep siphoning on both bars though. A siphoning skill on both bars. This way you can take advantage of the higher Magicka pool through Magicka Flood. This increases your max Magicka by 8% while having a siphon ability slotted. So you do want a siphon ability on both bars. Alright, sorry about that, clearing my nose. Moving on to weapons, we do use primarily a destruction staff, or destruction staves, so we take the ultimate, the active abilities, and passives. If you want to play this as a tank, you already have the capability of doing that with an ice staff, and if you want to play this as a healer, you can equip a resto staff. As you can see, I already unlocked the resto staff passives, ultimates, and active abilities to show that you can use these. Now moving on to the guild, or the armor skills. Light armor passives, you will take all of them, plus the active ability, because you'll be using these in different situations. Medium armor, you will take the top two and the bottom one. The top two are primarily if you're using more physical based stuff. The bottom one is for your dodge rolling and your increased movement speed while sprinting. Heavy armor, we take the top three. Now the reason we take all these on the medium and heavy is so we can take advantage of them when we need to. So, Soul Magic, optional, but I always take the bottom two here. It is optional to take the rest of this. Guild skills, Fighter's Guild, I do take the ultimate, active abilities, and passives because I do use some of these even when I'm playing as a damage dealer. Sometimes I might use Silver Leash to pull enemies in. I might use Dawnbreaker to add more DPS to my pool of damage. So, Mage's Guild, ultimate, active abilities, and passives here. And as you can see, I take specific ones here because I want this character to have the ability to play any role in any situation, whether it be a tank, a healer, or damage dealer. So when I play this as a tank, I usually put Structured Entropy on both bars so I can get 8% max health on both bars. So Sagic Order, I take the ultimate and active abilities. Primarily, I take the ultimate for PvP. A lot of these other abilities I take for different situations when it's called for. And then on Dawned, I take the active abilities and passives that best reflect my ability to play this character. Now, moving on to Alliance War. I take the active abilities and ultimate in the Assault line that best reflects my ability to play this character in PvE. And in PvP, I take the ultimate and active abilities plus the one passive magical aid or Magicka aid to help me play this character in PvE. You can use these other active abilities and passives in both skill lines for playing primarily PvP. Now, racial skills, we are a Dark Elf. We get Dynamics, which increases our max magic and stamina by 1875. We also get Resist Flame, which increases your flame resistance by 2310. And then we get Ruination, which increases weapon and spell damage by 258. Alchemy, medicinal use. When using potions, resulting effects last 30% longer. And Provisioning, Gourmand, and Connoisseur. These both make your food and drinks last 20 minutes longer. So, now going over the skills on our bar, this is where things are going to get funny. People are going to be like, what? But trust me, hear me out, this thing works amazing. So starting with the first ability, we have Crushing Shock. Now this does all three damage types. When you activate it, it hits the enemy doing fire, frost, and shock damage. And enemies hit while casting are interrupted, set off balance, and stunned for 3 seconds. The next ability we use is called Funnel Health. Now this will hit a target for X amount of magic damage, healing you or 2 other nearby allies for 59% of the damage inflicted every 2 seconds for 10 seconds. This is how we get our Spell Power Cure to proc. one of them. The other tool we use is called Flame Pulsar. This is an AoE, spammable. So we use this anyways, even on single target in our rotation. We go Crushing Shock, Light Attack, Funnel Health, Light Attack, Flame Pulsar, Light Attack. Now, Flame Pulsar is really nice because it does flame damage to nearby enemies, afflicting them with minor mangle, reducing their max health by 10% for 33 seconds. That's the main reason why we use this, is that max health, that minor mangle. It helps out a lot in dungeons and trials. Now, moving on to the next ability, we have Debilitate. Now, this is really cool because it offers some group support and some damage. It does X amount of damage over 10 seconds, reducing the movement speed of the enemy by 50% for 4 seconds. But while affected, the effect persists, the enemy is afflicted with minor magicka steel, causing you and your allies to restore 300 magicka every second when damaging them. Yeah, Nightblades are cool because they get magicka steel. The next ability we use is called Sap Essence. This is an AoE ability that you can use. It'll hit multiple targets within an 8-meter radius for X amount of magic damage, and all enemies you hit will heal you for 1,829 plus 20% more for each enemy hit after the first. If an enemy is hit, you gain major sorcery, increasing your spell damage by 20% for 20 seconds. Don't worry really too much about that. It's primarily for the AoE heal, so you can keep your group alive. Plus, it's a great spammable. This one and Minor Mangle are great spammables that you can use for AoE. This is your spammable that you use primarily for single target. The next ability we use is our primary ultimate ability. I know it sounds weird, but it is. It's called Veil of Blades. Now, this one, when you activate this, it's a 5-meter radius circle that reduces the movement speed of enemies by 70%, dealing X amount of magic damage every second, and granting you and your allies major protection, reducing your damage taken by 30%. Allies in the area can activate the Hidden Refresh synergy, granting invisibility, increasing their movement speed by 70%, and healing for X amount of health over 4 seconds. This is a great support ability, because not only does it do damage, it also offers group support. And it helps the tank a lot. The next, on the back bar, and why I have that there, I don't know. It should be this ability on the back bar. We're going to go ahead and move that there. So on the back bar, our first ability we have is called Shock Reach. This one, devastate an enemy with an enhanced charge from your staff, dealing X amount of shock damage and X amount of shock damage over 8 seconds. It also stuns enemies for 2.5 seconds. Remember what I said. These guys use every ability to negatively affect their enemies. And they will do that to aid their group. But they will also do things to help support their group to keep them alive. So they do a mix of healing and damage in one. And it makes them very powerful because of this. The next ability we use is called Twisting Path. This does basically puts down this black swirling death path that does gives your group major expedition for 4 seconds, increasing movement speed by 30%. It also does X amount of damage to enemies in the target area for every second for the duration of 12 seconds. So it does a pretty decent amount of damage every second. Next up, we have Blockade of Storms. This also does X amount of damage every second for 8 seconds in a 18 by 12 meter radius, and it also has a chance of setting concussed enemies off balance for 5 seconds. Our next ability is called Reaper's Mark. Now this one puts Major Breach and Major Fracture on the enemy, reducing physical and spell resistance. When the enemy is marked, dies, you heal for X amount and gain Major Berserk, increasing your damage done by 25% for 5 seconds. This portion of the ability scales off your max health. You can only have 1 Reaper's Mark active at a time. The next ability we have is called Siphoning Attacks. Now this one, basically you buff yourself. Any light attack or heavy attack you do heals you for 1640 and restores 106 magicka for 20 seconds. Fully charged heavy attacks restore twice the value And then when you will restore up to 4,270 additional magicka when the effect ends, based on the length of time siphoning attacks was active. So if you activate it and you let it run 18 seconds and you reactivate, you get roughly about 4,000 magicka back. Next ability we have is called Soul Harvest. Now this one is an ability we use primarily for generating ultimate because of what it does. Ravage an enemy with a spinning attack, dealing X amount of magic damage and increasing your damage against them by 20% for 6 seconds. This also afflicts the enemy with Major Defile, reducing their healing and health recovery by 30%. But while slotted, anytime you kill an enemy, you gain 10 ultimate. So while this is on the back bar, if you kill any enemies on the back bar, you will get 10 ultimate. This allows you to drop Velo Blades more effectively. Alright, now, moving on to our CP, starting with the red tree, we have 56 in the Ironclad. This reduces your damage taken from direct damage attacks by 20%. We do have 10 in the Spell Shield, which increases your spell resist by 1,003, sorry. We have 28 in the Light Armor Focus, increasing your physical resistance by 2542 while wearing 5 or more pieces of light armor. We have 31 into Thick Skin. This reduces your damage taken from damage over time effects by 13%. 43 into Hardy, reducing your damage taken from physical, poison, disease damage by 10%. And 43 into Elemental Defender, reducing your damage taken from Flame, Frost, Shock, and magic damage by 10%. Moving on to the final red tree, we have 40 in the Bastion. This increases the effectiveness of your damage shields by 16%. Now, it says your damage shields. This is any damage shield applied to you from an outside source or the one you apply yourself. So it's really kind of a mixed thing here. I really wish they would fix this in its wording to say that. But it does apply to any damage shield. And it's really nice to have. Next, we have 19 into Quick Recovery. This increases healing received by 5%. And then moving on over here, we have 40 into Warlord. This reduces break free cost by 16%. 16 into Sprinter, reducing sprint cost by 10%. 16 into Bashing Focus, reducing bash cost by 10%. And then moving on to the middle tree here, we have 75 into Arcanist. This increases your mag recovery by 14%. And 43 into Tenacity, increasing your magicka and stamina return of your fully charged heavy attacks by 10%. Moving on, we have 40 into Tumbling, reducing dodge roll cost by 16%. 40 into Shadow Ward, reducing block cost by 16%. And then moving on to the final trees, the blue trees, we have 43 into Bless. This increases healing done by 10%. 56 into Elfborn, increasing critical damage and critical healing with magic abilities by 20%. 56 into Elemental Expert, increasing Flame, Frost, Shock, and magic damage by 12%. And then moving on to the middle tree, we have 35 in the Staff Expert. This increases your damage done with light and heavy attacks with Destruction and Restoration Staves, as well as Overload by 20%. And then 40 in the Mastered Arms, increasing your direct damage done by 16%. Moving on to the final blue tree, we have 40 in the Thaumaturge, increasing your damage done with damage over time effects by 16%. Alright. Now that you guys have seen that, you guys probably want to see how well this thing can do in a damage situation, because that's what it's made for. So what we're going to do is we're going to do 2 quick parses. One on the little guy, one on the big guy up there firing on fire, so we can show you the difference of how this character works in different scenarios. This is primarily to show what your damage is going to look like in a dungeon scenario. That's to show what your damage looks like in an organized group scenario. That doesn't mean 4 people, that means 12 people in a raid. So, let's go ahead and get our potion going. We're going to get our buffs going. And then we're just going to go through the process. Oops. I screwed up there. That's okay. So we did about 20k DPS. I can pull about 25 when I don't make a lot of mistakes, and I can get the rotation quick. I made a lot of mistakes in the front bar, not so good. So, but let's go ahead and take a look at our damage output so you guys can see. We go to almost 4k spell damage with this. which is really nice. We have a 60% spell critical, 90% critical damage, and a 10k spell penetration. Our light attacks were hitting for quite a bit. Most of our other abilities were hitting really good, including our Sap Essence. Alright, now what we're going to do is we're going to go over here and we're going to do the same thing on the big guy, but this time we're going to use ultimates. So potion, buffs, debuff, and then attack. Oops, I screwed up there. But you'll see I can pull about 30k with this. I can usually get to about 32k if I really pull it off well. Hopefully that Veil of Blades will help. We'll see. And I already made a lot of mistakes in the rotation anyways, once. So I'm probably going to get it to about 31 maybe. Yeah, barely 30k. But yeah, I can usually pull about 32 to 35k DPS with this. And I know it looks like a healer to a lot of you because you're all sitting here going, what? This thing's using like healer sets and it's doing that much DPS? Boy, that's not possible. It works out really well. So the way this thing looks in a organized group setting is we go to 38k Magicka with 38, almost 4,000 spell damage, 65% spell critical, 20% crit damage. Of course, this is not going to give us the crit penetration value because it's going to rate it as 100%, but you can look through here and see that a lot of this stuff does a lot of damage. Our Flame Pulsar hit for about 20k, our Funnel Health hit for about 10, our Light Attack was hitting for about 12, our Veil of Blades was hitting for about 10k a tick, and then our Twisting Path, our Debilitate, we're doing pretty good damage there. You know, our Sap Essence didn't do too bad. The Shock Reach did really good. So this thing can do a lot of good damage in the right setting. And as you can see here also, we go to 16k Magicka, 21k health, and 38k max Magicka in an organized group. So now I'm going to take this into a dungeon. I'm going to leave it as is, guys, because I don't have to change a thing for this thing to solo play. This thing is a beast. So it's really fun. And we're just going to go ahead and jump over to the Depths of Malatar. And again, I do apologize for those of you who are getting tired of seeing this dungeon. I am too, but I still enjoy doing the testing here because it's a really fun dungeon to test in, because it is one of the latest dungeons added with the Wrathstone DLC, or Wraithstone DLC, however you want to say it. And it's a really fun dungeon. I love soloing this myself, personally. And yes, this character has soloed this. Because it doesn't take much to solo this with this character. This character's just like I said, this character's a beast. And it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't look like it deals a lot of damage, but it can. It can definitely push the DPS if it needs to. So, and hopefully we'll see that Scourge set go off. So. Like I said, remember when I said this thing's got some great AoE damage? Yeah, you got that, and then you got this, which you can do. So, it's really powerful, either way. And you can see we already got the damage shield for doing the healing. And we've already got spell power cure on us also, so. There we go. Now we're going to go in and face the Cheesehead himself. I already saw where he is. You're going to get reeked. And you're going to notice that I'm not going to do something right away. I'm actually going to hold off on doing one of my abilities. And that is... First, I'm going to get Debilitate back on this guy. I'm going to hit him with Sap, Mangle, and then I'm going to do my whole back bar again. And then we're going to drop the Bell Blades. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and let him kill us, because if I don't, I will kill him, and then I'll be, like, wanting to play the rest of the dungeon, and yeah. But that's pretty much the Blood Cultist Witch. As you guys can see, it actually works out really well, even as a solo character. It works really well as a group character in group dynamics, because of all the different aspects to it. It can bring so much to your group, and it can bring so much to your not only doing damage, but also support and everything else that it does. It does a mix of everything super well. And I really, really do enjoy playing this build. So, and that, my friends, is the Blood Cultist Witch. So you guys know what that means. If you like this video, go ahead and hit that like button. If you guys want to see more videos by me, you can subscribe. Other than that, thank you all for watching. Until next time, have a wonderful day. And this guy might see you in game. Bye.